Hey, good afternoon. I'm Rory. This is 420 Central, and I have the pleasure, after several months of looking forward to this interview, of chatting with Tony Kerby. Tony, good afternoon, man.
Good afternoon, Rory.
What a pleasure to be with you.
Always fun.
Yeah, thank you. We missed each other last week, so we've managed to catch up on Tony's way through to back home to the States. He's been here for a week. Tony, just to start off, I'd really like to go back a bit and connect with you. You're in the cannabis industry. You come to South Africa fairly regularly. Where do you originate from? Where do you hail from?
I currently live just north of Detroit in the U.S. So Michigan, it's a state that's shaped like a mitten. I'm about 45 minutes north of Detroit, which is the capital of Michigan.
Right.
So major metropolitan area, but that's where I hang my hat right now. Give me another 6 months and I'll have a residence hopefully in Port Elizabeth.
That sounds fantastic. Is that serious? You're looking at trying to get yourself a place in South Africa?
I tried to meet with immigration here to get the business visa. Let's just say that was not easy. They couldn't accommodate my time schedule, which is fair.
Yes.
So I've been dealing with the South African embassy in the U.S. They're supposed to be sending me the paperwork so I can get myself what they call a business visa, which will allow me 6 months continuous residency in South Africa.
Yeah.
And get one for my wife as well because she's going to come with me.
Right. I think that's fantastic. You know what? You've touched on an interesting point straight away. So, you as a person who wants to come to South Africa, how do you feel about the idea of what's just been signed into law in terms of compensation not being part of a transaction where we can take your property away, to put it in alternative terms?
We have a Land Appropriation Act in the U.S. It's called eminent domain. The difference is eminent domain can only be used if it's to the benefit of the municipality that it's in, and they have to pay fair market value to the landowner. Okay.
Yes.
With what the South African government has done, is they've doubled down, in my opinion. Trump said this is not fair. You're going to use this to, in a negative way. Don't do it. We're pulling economic aid. And they basically said, no, we're going to go ahead and do it, and we're going to double down, and we're not even going to pay for the property. I think they're setting a very dangerous precedent. The tax base that can be affected, and South Africa has an extremely high unemployment. It's between 32 and 40 some odd percent.
Absolutely, right up at the 40s, that's a fact. And the danger is how high it is within the youth sector, but please carry on, yeah.
If you take away the property from the guys who are creating jobs, you're going to take away your tax base. You erode your tax base, you're going to erode your infrastructure, your country, and all the services that government can give.
I think that you speak of what could happen in terms of regression, and I think the sadness is partly also, you've also put a stop on people making investments into big cannabis, wanting to buy land to be able to make long-term investments into cannabis. And cannabis is a land dependent, we have the president talking about wanting to be the breadbasket or the cannabis basket of the world, but you're taking away the ability to put your investment into the most important part. It grows in land, so it is a very, very interesting narrow-mindedness, in my opinion, that is so going to hamper what we need. We need economic growth, and it has to come via investment. It's not coming via local creation.
It has to. I mean, I look at the economic aid. Now, I do not, personal opinion, I do not agree with the way Trump pulled the economic aid. That's going to cause some problems here. Okay?
Yes.
Immediately shut down of several health centers and workers and everything else because that's what funded it.
Yes.
However, my opinion is he should have said, hey, look, we've appropriated this money for this long. You got 90 days. Take a look at what you're doing. And
correction factor.
Exactly.
I'd agree with you. That's a little bit more sensible about understanding, first of all, where the aid money is going.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So from a humanitarian point of view, there's a principle that you stick behind some of these commitments. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But here, where there's softer targets and you're not impacting the unfortunate person who bears the burden, that's the route to go. So I agree with you. It's not thought through, but I think, if there's ever a need to defend him, is he's had to walk in and knock a couple of home runs, if it were,
Absolutely.
to signal his intent over the next.
He's a businessman. He's learned to play in the political realm, but he's a businessman first. And one of his stated goals is to cut the U.S. deficit in half. To do that, he's going to have to look at all the money the U.S. is throwing around that we don't have. We're borrowing to give out.
Yep.
So I get that. I understand it. My opinion is do it the right way. I've got a friend whose mother lost her job because the aid was pulled. She works in healthcare. So I don't agree with that. I do agree that things need to change. And when you're looking at something like cannabis specifically, like you said, it's huge. It needs the land in order to be able to grow the product. But at the same time, when you do a double down like this, you're affecting guys like me. I've spent 3 bars in South Africa in the last 2 years.
That's fantastic, and thank you very much.
I'm trying to build something for my family and myself.
Yeah.
Okay? I had an American company that has a process that takes the fiber and the hurd from industrial hemp, they mix it with glue and binders, and they make OSB. They call it OHB. OSB stands for Orient Strand Board. It's basically plywood.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Orient Hemp Board, same thing, but it's made out of hemp. That process is patented. They own the intellectual property rights for it. They actually sued the Chinese government because they started off manufacturing in China. The Chinese government tried to seize it, but they had the patents registered internationally. They sued the Chinese government, won, and the Chinese government cannot use their process.
Right.
I had a license agreement on the table with them. Because of what Trump has done, and because of Ramaphosa's response, they're sitting on the fence now whether they want to let me have the licensing agreement, because they're afraid that if I build the plant here, government sees that it's successful and they seize it. And now they have all their intellectual property and everything else. They don't want to go through another long court case to get their stuff back. It's causing issues.
Do you know, I think there's something important to be added to this here is that the key factor, and it's a pacifier of past generational pain, or is that the first move of several more moves towards a more authoritarian South African rule stroke communism? If you look, on one hand you have Vladimir Putin in the wings in Russia, you have China in the other space. You know what I mean? It's a complicated place to look at in terms of, is this just a pig in the ground and we heal from here and it's got some good rules and some good logic, or is this the beginning of eroding further rights of the people?
I've been coming over for a number of years now. I've paid attention to what's going on. I know more about South African politics than probably 95% of Americans.
Yeah.
Just because I'm here, it affects my business and everything else. South Africa is very unique. You are part of BRICS. That's great. You can trade with China, Russia, Brazil, India, all the countries there. No problems. You also have a relationship with the EU. You're part of the EU, you get favorable trade agreements coming out of the EU as far as tariffs and everything else. So that's unique for a country. You also had a relationship, it was friendly, it wasn't a whole lot of import-export back and forth between the two countries. Strong economic aid coming out of the US.
Yeah.
So, and you got a good relationship with Australia. So look at it from the economics of it. Australia can come in and out. Good trade. China, in and out. Good trade. India, Brazil, good trade. US, economic help, guiding, yes. EU, good. All of it, this put South Africa, in my opinion, in a really unique situation as far as the country goes.
Yeah.
Now what you're doing is you're saying, because your president has made the comment of, well, we're going to send a delegation to Trump to talk about this, but he's probably going to give us some low-level guys, so first we're going to go talk to China. That's the government's business, how they want to handle it. I'm not a politician. I'm a businessman and an activist. Those are the things that I do well.
Yeah.
You've just turned around and said to the country that will give you 800 billion rand, we don't trust you. We're going to go to China. Now, China comes in, but you show me where China's giving you economic aid without a quid pro quo.
Absolutely.
They're not.
Absolutely.
So my fear is that the South African government, in order to make up for the loss of aid, is going to sell off more of South Africa's mineral rights or resources, because
or whatever. But certainly I'd agree with you at a higher price at some point.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, we're getting way off cannabis and we're getting into world economics, but I mean, it's one of those things that I'm trying to build a processing plant and I'm trying to build a hempwood manufacturing plant, because my opinion is South Africa, with the climate, the land, the labor, everything that is here, South Africa is poised to be the #1 industrial hemp supplier to the world.
Sure thing.
Period.
Sure thing.
Medical cannabis and recreational cannabis, I know South Africa hasn't figured out the recreational side yet, but there's SAPRA for medical export. You don't get a whole lot better quality.
Yes.
I mean, forget the fact that they haven't come out with a regulation to allow outdoor yet. And I get it. You know, outdoor, you don't know what you're getting. The contaminants can be around. So I understand for export purposes why they don't want it. But I've smoked a lot of greenhouse. I don't smoke indoor when I come here.
Yeah.
I prefer the outdoor and I prefer the greenhouse.
Sure.
The greenhouse can be sold overseas. I know it. I already know guys who are exporting it to Thailand, to Australia, to EU.
From South Africa?
From South Africa. No. That market can grow.
Absolutely it can.
And Europe can't grow like you guys can.
Sure.
Australia, maybe. That's one of the few continents I haven't been on, so I don't know the climate as well. They might be able to, but licensing.
Still in quite a prohibitionist space around recreational, and
very much so.
For me, I think that it's an important part that we're still stumbling on is the recreational part.
Very much
it's
so.
An important part for a number of reasons. I mean, for me, one fundamental hobby horse of mine is its opposition in terms of an alternative to alcohol and the abuses of alcohol, etc., etc. But there's so much that we're being deprived of by just not getting past the recreational boundary. There's still this stigma attached to it and this hoodoo voodoo part that's, you know what I mean? It's nonsensical. There's enough evidence on the table for us to move along from there. And I think that the recreational one being dealt with makes the rest simple.
It does.
You know?
It does. I mean, your high court gave them a mandate. They haven't hit the mandate timeline. They've had to push it. They've had to push it. They've had to push it. It's a simple thing.
Absolutely. And to a certain extent, a beginning point. Nobody's asking you to solve the whole problem in one go. Start somewhere, learn from the process, be happy to make changes annually if you have to, but don't not have a process.
Have a simple process. Any Zoll is going to be sold in any establishment in South Africa for adult recreational use. Has to be tested by one of these labs. And list the labs.
Can be a government lab.
It doesn't matter.
For your happiness factor.
Yeah. Because the main reason for the testing is public safety. I get that 100%.
Sure.
And to let them know what they're getting.
100% agree with you.
So, okay, you want a license? Pay your $5,000 a month or whatever for this license, that license, whoever you want. Yeah. But as long as when I walk in and let's say the Hawks walk in, that strain there. Here's their certificate.
Yes.
And then leave you alone.
Yeah.
You know,
I have to agree. Look, there's something for me also is the idea for me of being able to start an industry for we talked just now, unemployment 40%.
Yeah.
To almost take this industry and allow it to fly before you tax it. And it's almost like we're stuck with how do we tax it that we won't let it fly first, you know? And if you change that around and said, let's get spades in the ground, let's get employment happening, let's go and set ourselves a course for becoming the basket of the world for cannabis, you'd have so much more of an investment and incentive that you could later on look at and say it's delivered for us in the employment space. It's going to have VAT attached to it, so we've got some form of taxation on it.
Yeah.
But let the industry use its resources to grow.
You already pay any legit shop. Okay. And there's, I'm not going to argue what somebody considers legit. You know, to me, you're selling a sticker and you're getting something on the side. You're questionable there.
Yeah, that's pushing the boundaries.
That's pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Frankly, you know?
It is. Yeah. To a shop, say 420 Central, Pottery in PE,
absolutely,
Turtle House in J-Bay.
Yep.
These guys, when you come in and you purchase, you're purchasing or reimbursing, however they want to say
Sharing,
it. Yeah, sharing a product. You're paying the farmers, you're paying the guys who transport it, and all of that has VAT attached.
100%.
So you have the model.
Should have.
Should have. You already have the model.
But point being, there's enough there in terms of a value to the government to have a starting point to want to support it.
Exactly.
I mean, the VAT opportunity in this industry alone is remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. So if you've got that already in place, you add a couple things for public safety, and you let it go, and then you develop it as you're going along instead of trying to, we're going to fix everything all, because it never works.
Agree with you. Work in progress virtually in every industry, yet we want to solve this one before we launch it. It's a bit back to front.
Look at Windows.
Absolutely.
What version of Windows are we on now?
Or any of the cell phones.
Progress.
What have I learned? What have I implemented to improve my situation?
And that's a simple model to follow.
Yeah.
So
which is you can have a zero-based start virtually.
Exactly.
You know, and grow it as you learn from there. So yeah, I think that there's stuff we really need to sort out in terms of we're overcomplicating something that should be given the absolute support it can get given to get spades in the ground, to get it employing people. We've lost 5 years.
You've
lost half a decade.
Yeah, you've lost a lot of time, and a lot of guys who expected these things to be done in a timeline that the court said have made huge investments.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a prime example.
Sure.
Huge investment into the industry, and you're still sitting there going, are they coming today?
Yeah.
You know, it does not instill confidence. It doesn't open it up as much as it could.
Yeah.
You know, you got guys who are willing to jump on the bandwagon. I mean, Mike Tyson and Snoop Dogg just opened up their first place in Cape Town.
Yeah. I'll keep my ears up.
You know, my question is, and this is, understand, I'm an American who's opened a business here.
Yeah.
So I get that idea because you want to be part of it. How'd they get it right?
Hey, thank you so very much for joining us. We had a fantastic time with Tony. Got to know him a whole lot more. We look forward to him hopefully getting his residence here and being supportive in further growth of the cannabis industry in South Africa. Some great perspectives that he offers in terms of their comparison and or the land issue that we deal with. I think it's a real issue we need to consider because we want investment, we need investment, and we need security for the investments that we're making. So watch this space. We'll be catching up again next week with the second episode, and we've got some really nice, interesting stuff to follow on that. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic weekend, and we look forward to seeing you back soon. 420 Central TV. Ciao for now.